not special interests. In his first term, he took on union bosses, reforming collective bargaining and letting local school districts allocate their budgets effectively while hiring the best teachers. A true fiscal conservative, in his first term, he took on a $3.5 billion budget deficit and solved that while delivering $2 billion in tax relief. Significant accomplishments. He's overseen the creation of thousands of jobs and businesses, and at the same time, significantly reducing unemployment in the state. And he will continue to drive those barriers down until everyone that wants a job can find a job. Despite tax relief, and despite job creation, and despite preventing teacher layoffs, the big government union bosses weren't happy. And in 2012, they orchestrated a recall election, but they underestimated Scott Walker. He became the first governor in American history to win a recall election. In 2014, he won re-election to his second term. And just count that. That's 3 significant election victories in just 4 years. Of course, he's used to winning elections. After serving in the state assembly, he won 3 races for Milwaukee County Council. 3 races. And he's the only Republican to ever hold that office. In 2008, in that county, he won almost 60% of the vote. In that county, Barack Obama carried with a 2/3 majority. That's just proof, absolute proof, that when you deliver results, the voters will stand with you. In his second term as governor, he continues to deliver on those commitments. He was passed significant pro-growth legislation, right-to-work legislation. Significant accomplishment as he continues. Governor Walker firmly believes that the conservative principles that have been delivered in Wisconsin can be delivered across America. And he's looking forward to sharing that vision with the country. When he's not traveling or working in Madison, you can find this son of a preacher and Packers fan at home with his wife Tanette and his sons Matt and Alex, or out riding his Harley.
Hey!
We're glad to have him here, and especially here in the Low Country. We really appreciate it. So at this time, I'd really like you to join me in welcoming the 45th Governor of Wisconsin, Scott Walker.
Thanks. Thank you. And thanks for that fine introduction, and thanks for your leadership here in the party for the 1st District. Appreciate that. It's good to be introduced by a fellow Harley rider as well. Appreciate that. And thank you all for coming out this morning. First off, it is great. It's great to be back in state. Great to be back in South Carolina. Great to be back in the Low Country. Thank you for hosting us here in North Charleston. And I particularly want to thank Low Country Harley Davidson, the dealership here, for letting us come by today. I wish I wasn't so busy today because I've got my Harley boots on. I could actually get on a road kick, I'm sure, but we're going to come back and do some riding here in state and have some fun. But I also want to thank not only the Low Country Harley Davidson, although if any of you are riders, I just saw on the way in, thank you for doing this, but I know a week from Saturday, you're doing on the 25th a ride for love, a ride 9 stops to focus in memory of the 9 lives that were lost. Not only thanks to Low Country Harley Davidson, but thanks to everybody in this region and in the state for showing the nation about how to become united when something tragic happens. We appreciate that. I called my friend Nikki Haley up after all that, and it was just amazing to see the kind of leadership you provided for this country in what could have really been a negative, not just for you all, but for this country. And obviously what happened was something we denounced, not only the actions, but the beliefs of the person who was involved. I'll never say his name, but you all showed how to bring people together in this community, in this region, in this state, and in turn you did it for the country. So thank you very much for doing that. And I got to tell you how impressed I am to see such a great crowd out a little bit after 8. We were coming down I-29. Somebody sent me a picture of folks coming in, and I was impressed with such a great crowd early in the morning. Some of you may have heard, it took us a little while to get here. In fact, I've been up for more than 24 hours. I announced on Saturday night, or excuse me, it's Saturday, it feels like Saturday night. I announced on Monday night, the 13th, Tonette and the boys, you may have saw my wife introduced me. The boys were MC of our event in Waukesha. And then we got up and we left our hotel yesterday morning at 5:30 to get up, and then we took a plane back supposedly to Atlanta, but because of the storms last night, we got diverted to Memphis for a while. So, and I didn't even get any ribs. That's the darn part about it. I was looking forward to it. The Rendezvous's got some pretty good ribs in downtown Memphis, but I didn't even get a chance to go over there. We had to stay on the plane. And then finally, when they got us into Atlanta, we had missed our flight to here by about 5 minutes. And so a little before 3 o'clock this morning, we left Atlanta and drove here because we didn't want to let you down because we knew there was a great crowd. So thank you for coming out. And you know what? I'm Scott Walker and I'm running for president. I want your vote and I'm not going to let you down either. You see, I mentioned this the other night, but I look around, I see some of the hats of some of the veterans here in particular. You all remind me that America is a can-do kind of country. We're a can-do kind of country. Unfortunately, in Washington, we got a government that can't seem to get the job done. Or as I call it, 68 square miles surrounded by reality. But the good news is you don't have to worry. Help is on the way. It's not too late. We can turn America around. That's right. You know, for us, it's not too late. We can turn things around. We just need new, fresh leadership. Leadership with big, bold ideas from outside of Washington. The kind of leadership that can get things done. I'm proud to say in my state, we got things done. You heard a little bit about it in the introduction, but since I've been governor, we took on the unions and we won in a blue state. We cut our taxes by $2 billion. We reduced the burden on individuals, on employers, on property owners. In fact, property taxes in my state today are lower than they were 4 years ago. With the budget I just signed, they'll be lower in the end of December of 2016 than they were in December of 2010. Who else in America can say that?
It's kind of weird. Over the place.
You got really tall.
Yeah.
I'll say something. You guys all set? Okay, make sure I don't step off.
Great to be here. Obviously, another hot day, but a good day.
Sorry, can I back that up?
Like
Yeah.
that. Otherwise, I feel like the outtakes on Toy Story. It's great to be here. Obviously, after a long day, we put in a full day without putting our head on a pillow, but it's been worth it. We had a great crowd this morning down in North Charleston. It's great to be here in the Midlands. We're going to be making our way around the state, and then in New Hampshire, Iowa in the days to come. Had a great day yesterday in Nevada. Even with all of our travel problems along the way, we found a way a little bit before 3 o'clock this morning to get in some rented vehicles and make our way here to South Carolina, because we could feel the passion that people had to come out because they want new, fresh leadership. They want someone with big, bold ideas from outside of Washington. And they want someone who can do more than talk, who can actually get things done. And that's what our record has shown in a blue state like Wisconsin. I believe we can do the same thing all across this great country. So with that, I'll take questions.
Hey, Governor, on Boy Scouts, there's an increasing number of gay parents who are raising families, and some of them want to lead their kids Cub Scout troops. What problem do you have with that? Why do you not want that to happen?
It's up to the Boy Scouts. I just said that for me it was fine. I'm an Eagle Scout. My kids were Scouts. My mom was a dead mother. All I pointed out was that the policy was perfectly fine when I was there, and I thought they should be protected from all the political and media controversy about it. There's nothing more to it than that. It's their decision.
So you're not against gay leaders in the Boy Scouts?
It's up to the. I'm not running for president of the Boy Scouts. Bob Gates handles that, and as I mentioned, I made reference to him about his military service here.
Governor, you said that crippling sanctions are the answer for Iran. There have already been sanctions, and they're still working on nuclear weapons. Why would that all of a sudden be effective?
Because they're on their knees right now. After 19 years, they've been in effect. They didn't come here out of the goodness of their heart. They came because the sanctions were working. We needed a place where we finished it off and put them in a position. I'd be willing to negotiate, but under our terms, not under Iran's terms. Our terms should be complete and absolute dismantlement of their illicit nuclear infrastructure. It should be absolute disclosure, meaning full transparency of any of their capacities, including their underground fortified facilities. And it means dealing with other problems. They are the chief state sponsor of terrorism within the region, whether it's going after funding and being responsible for Hamas, or you look at what they've done in Hezbollah, in direct concern to Israel. You see what they're doing in Syria with Assad propping him up, or with the Houthis in Yemen. This is not a country we should be doing business with.
Governor, when you're thousands of miles away from the state right now on this marathon campaign trip, you're saying you're not able to sleep even. How can you tell the folks at home in Wisconsin how you're able to maintain your day job at this
I
point?
already checked in 3 times this morning with my chief of staff. I know where the Senate's at right now, and talking about my chief of staff talked this morning to Senator Fitzgerald. Just like any good small business owner, you can do as much work on the road meeting customers as you can back in the home office. And I think anyone who's run a small business successfully has done that day in and day out. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm talking to customers.
Governor, you said the ban on the gay scout.
She just asked me about that.
Right. How does it protect children? You said it protected children.
I just answered that.
How does it protect children?
I pointed out the protection was not a physical protection. It was protecting. Discussion about the policy protected them from being involved in the very thing you're talking about right now, the political and media discussion about it, instead of just focusing on what Scouts is about, which is about camping and citizenship and things of that nature.
What role is one of the Iran hostages going to play in your campaign?
Well, he joined with us the other day, Kevin Hermaning, someone I've known for years. He lives in Wausau, Wisconsin now. At the time, he hailed from Oak Creek. And it's just someone I knew his story very well. He was the youngest of the hostages, a Marine who had just been assigned to the U.S. Embassy. And I think it's just for me, knowing Kevin, I didn't know him as a kid, but I know him now over the years as an adult. And it's just a powerful message. He's reminded me powerfully that Iran has not changed much from the day that he and the other 51 hostages were released on Reagan's first day.
When you say you didn't inherit fame and fortune, should we see that as a contrast between you and Jeb Bush?
No, it's just who I am. You can contrast it with anybody you want, Republican or Democrat alike. I think that's something that just tells my narrative. What I got came from my family and my community and the people that I surrounded myself with, and the people that my parents and my family put me around. And I have humble roots. I'm proud of those. I think it makes me who I am today. But to me, that's who I am. It's not about contrasting me with others as much as pointing out that's who I am.
Can you comment on the Planned Parenthood video?
Yeah, I just think it's outrageous and disgusting. It's precisely why, as a governor, I defunded Planned Parenthood and shifted those resources over to other non-controversial ways to provide access to women's health. We did it with public health departments in a way that got away from a controversial agency like Planned Parenthood. And I think these videos are just another example of why we need to do that at the federal level as well.
Governor, you're saying
Carolina question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So I was looking around trying to get...
The Confederate flag just came down in South Carolina. What are you hearing today from Republicans here and how they feel about that?
Well, I didn't hear a lot here. Most people are just coming up and asking to sign things or say hi. But I mentioned earlier today I have a lot of respect for Governor Nikki Haley. I think she's been, yet again, on this issue, as she's been in many others, a great leader. And I respect her bringing together a broad coalition to get the job done. And that's why it was important for her to be able to lead and to lead the people from South Carolina and not have them drive that from outside, but let her lead first.
So now there's any evaluation of other Confederate memorials?
What's that?
Any consideration for her for possible vice president or any other post?
I just announced this week, so it's pretty premature to be talking about vice presidents. I still got to put a lot of work in here in South Carolina and across the country to be able to earn the vote of the American people. Certainly for us, if I have the ability to earn the nomination, the votes here and in other key states across the country that would lead to my party's nomination, I'm going to make sure the person I pick primarily for someone who's capable of being an outstanding president and God forbid something were to happen to me if I were to be elected. And that's the most important role the vice president has, is to be able to make sure that that person, he or she, is capable of being president of the United States. Along with that, I'm going to want someone who shares my values, shares my concerns for helping everyone live their piece of the American dream, someone who shares my concerns for transferring power from Washington into the hands of the hardworking taxpayers in states all across the country, and increasingly someone who shares my concern about making sure we can protect our children and our grandchildren from the threats of radical Islamic terrorism and other threats in the world. We're going to make those decisions based on policy and based on capability. Certainly, Nikki's a friend of mine. She's been a very capable governor, and there'll be a long list of people like her. But again, like I said, it's premature.
Can you talk about the chances of your lawsuit against the federal government on drug testing for
for us, we just want to get ahead of the game. We think the sooner we can put in place a system that says if you're able to work, in our Wisconsin, we've already put in place a requirement. This is for able-bodied adults. We require them to be enrolled in one of our job training or employability training programs. We want to make sure that the next step is that they're able to be free of being addicted to drugs, so capable of passing the drug test, having the filters in place that allow us to do that. And that's something when I talk to employers, not only in my state, but now increasingly across the country, employers tell us, hey, I got jobs in my state. Our state website has over 80,000 job openings on it. I know if I get people basic job skills and I get them free of a drug addiction. Well, first of all, as I understand, the president just came out, and I think in a rare moment of candor on this whole Iran deal, said that essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, but that Iran's behavior is not contingent on this deal, and to me that's just remarkable, because I and others have been saying this for its actions. This is a country that is a leading state sponsor of terrorism. As I point out many times in the past, they're actively supportive. Two of the major threats are supporters for Hezbollah as well as Hamas. They played an active role in supporting Assad. They're involved with the Shiite militias. They're playing a role in rebels in Yemen. This is a country, as I mentioned the other night when I introduced Kevin Hermaning, who's from Wisconsin, who grew up in Oak Creek back in 79 and 80 into early 81, and made the point on Monday that this is a country that hasn't changed, essentially fundamentally hasn't changed its ways since Kevin and the other 51 other American hostages were held hostage there. And this president, as I've said, I want to make it clear that I'm going to do everything in my power to terminate and undeal this bad deal, to reinstate the statutorily authorized sanctions, to try and put in place more crippling economic sanctions going forward, and to convince our allies to do the same.
Governor, what do you say to...
expound on how those kinds of sanctions would make it less likely for Iran to continue, if not thousands more centrifuges and up
I believe the bottom line is we need to be more aggressive. I don't think it's a matter of just reinstating what we have the authority to do. I think you need to press forward with more crippling economic sanctions. But the reason that Iran is at the table is because these sanctions have had an impact. They were on their knees. Their economy was crippled and headed in that direction. We need to finish that off. People have asked me, would I be willing to negotiate? Sure. Under our terms, not under their terms. If they were to dismantle their illicit nuclear infrastructure, if they were to fully disclose, meaning absolute transparency. I mean, think about the conditions that have come out in the last few days about things the president himself for the last several years has said were absolutes, and yet we see those being a moving bar in this deal. We need to have absolute transparency. None of us in our own lives, with our own families, certainly with our own children, would say, well, we want you to not do something, but we're going to give you this amount of warning before we come and check your room to see what you're up to. And yet that's essentially what they've gone forward with here. And then we need to get them to deal with the other problems that they have in that region that go beyond just the potential for a nuclear weapon. You've got the premier leading state sponsor of terrorism in that region in the world, and we're essentially through this deal.
Running for president, how will you keep your eye on the ball, especially with the Bucks Arena today? Looks like there may or may not be a deal.
Yeah, I check in all the time. It's one of those, I talk to a lot of small businesses here and others across the way, small business owners, I saw anywhere else, is they often get more work done on the road talking to customers than they do back in their own office. And so just like that, I'm talking to customers, in this case, people I need to earn the vote of citizens here in South Carolina and other places across the country, and I can do so in this technology age with two BlackBerries, or excuse me, I have two iPhones, I don't have BlackBerries, two iPhones, I can make those contacts every time I go from one stop to the next. I do that. And just like if I was President of the United States, I'd be capable of handling domestic, foreign, and national security issues all at the same time.
Governor, you talk about the Kohl's Cash and the Clipper coupons, and you talked about that for a while. There's also another Republican candidate. Donald Trump is running and talks about how rich he is. Who's got the better case with voters?
You know, in the end, that's the beauty of having 15, maybe 16 or 17 candidates is voters get to have a choice. I'm not going to speak ill of other candidates. I'm going to let other Republicans speak for themselves. I'm not going to put words in their mouth. I'm going to tell the American people what I'm for. I think Americans are tired of campaigns and candidates who tell people what they're against and who they're against. I'm going to talk about what I'm for and what I stand for, and I think the more people hear about who I am is part of it. I heard a lot of people in here that said, hey, boy, keep talking about that. I grew up that way. I love that kind of common sense. I want to hear more of that, but also as it leads not just to background, because I think many different people can have that kind of common sense regardless of their background, but talking about common sense solutions to the problems that face people today. That means doing more to reform this country and the federal government to put power back in the hands of the hardworking taxpayers, doing more to help grow the economy in a way that helps people create more jobs and higher wages so everyone can live their piece of the American dream, and definitely meaning going forward, finding a way to protect our children and our grandchildren and all others against the threats like radical Islamic terrorism and other threats we face in the world.
Is it a problem that people are comparing you? When you tell that story, what are people hearing? What are they?
Here I am. You guys all report that huge numbers of people don't know enough to make a decision about me, so I'm telling who I am. As people have seen, and any of the folks who from Wisconsin covered me know, I'm a pretty wide open guy. People know, even to the point last year I joked at the end of the campaign that the media knew more about my bald spot and a slit I had in my thumb than they did about my opponent's business record. I'm a wide open book. People will know about me, and I hope people will know my strengths and my faults and everything in between. They're going to get to know me and my family and the things I bring to the table, because I want to have a direct conversation with the people of America about how to make this country great again.
What would you like to see Congress do?
Well, I think there's a growing consensus amongst Democrats and Republicans alike that this is a bad deal. They want to stop it. This is one where, one of the few good things about this going forward is because the president hasn't taken this forward as a treaty, I think it makes it, none of this is easy. It's a lot of this will be like putting a genie back into a bottle. But I'm committed to going forward and making the case that this was an executive action, not a treaty. Therefore, the executive branch has the ability to pull back not only the actions taken, the agreement reached, but do so in a way that can reinstate the statutory sanctions we talked about and find a way to put other sanctions in place that would be crippling. And I think from what I've talked to folks in the Congress, I think there would be significant support not only from Republicans, but members of the other opposing party. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
What's that?
Quickly, I wanted everybody to be able to see. Here's Scott Walker running for president on just come in.
Great to be back in South Carolina. We'll keep coming back because we want to put power back in the hands of the hardworking people.
Absolutely.